I've been on the road for over a decade now, and if there's one superstition I've always brushed off, it's the stories about black dogs' omens of death, they say. I never believed in that stuff. Until one cold February night outside Roanoke. I was hauling freight southbound on I-81, maybe around 2:30 a.m. Not another soul on the road. Just me, the humming of my tires, and a light fog creeping across the asphalt. I had just passed exit 9 when I saw something in my headlights. It looked like a large dog, black as night, built like a mastiff, with glowing eyes that shimmered like oil slicks. It was standing dead center in the road. I had no time to swerve. I braced for impact, but there was no thud, no bump, no resistance. I slammed the brakes, came to a hard stop, and jumped out of the cab, flashlight in hand. The road was empty. I searched both ditches, walked back 100 feet, scanned the tree line. Nothing. Not even footprints in the dew-covered grass. I chalked it up to exhaustion and climbed back in. 10 minutes later, my CB crackled. A voice came through, raspy, distant.
You saw him, didn't you?
I froze. Who is this? I asked. Static, then silence. I kept driving, more alert than ever. I didn't see the dog again, but when I pulled into a truck stop an hour later, an old-timer approached me, said he recognized my rig.
You were stopped at exit 9?
I nodded. Yeah, some kind of animal ran out. He raised a hand to stop me.
Black dog, glowing eyes?
I hesitated. Yeah. He looked down at the pavement, then back up at me, his expression grim.
You need to be careful the next few days. That stretch is cursed. A lot of drivers see that thing before something bad happens.
I tried to laugh it off, but something in his eyes made me stop. 3 days later, I lost control on a mountain pass. My brakes failed on a downhill grade. I went into the runaway ramp and barely survived. Broke 3 ribs, dislocated a shoulder, totaled the rig. The mechanics couldn't find anything wrong with the brakes, said the system was fine. As I was sitting in the hospital, replaying it all in my head, I remembered the dog. How it didn't move, how it just stared, how it didn't leave a trace. I started asking around. Other truckers, locals. Turns out the legend's been around for years. They call it the hellhound of exit 9. Some say it's the ghost of a dog that was hit and left to die. Others believe it's something much older, a spirit that feeds off wrecks and death. I don't drive that route anymore. If I have to pass through Virginia, I take the long way. Adds 3 hours to the trip, but it's worth it, because I know what I saw. It was about 3:45 a.m. when I pulled into a remote gas station somewhere off Route 95 in Maine. I'd been pushing hard since Connecticut, and my eyes were starting to blur, so I figured I'd top off the tank and grab a coffee. The place was one of those older stations, no brand name, barely lit, one flickering bulb over the pumps. There was only one other vehicle there, an old, beat-up sedan parked at pump 3. No one was inside it. I pulled up to pump 1 and shut off the engine. The night air was biting cold, and a thin fog was creeping across the lot. I stepped out and noticed something right away, the silence. No wind, no bugs, not even the usual buzz of the fluorescent lights. Just dead quiet. As I started fueling, I glanced over at the sedan again. This time, there was a man standing beside it. He hadn't been there a second ago. He was tall, maybe 6'5", but rail thin. Skin pale as candle wax, wearing a tattered coat and jeans that looked decades out of date. His head was shaved, and he had these huge, hollow eyes that locked on me the second I noticed him. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. I felt something twist in my gut. I finished fueling and walked toward the station door to pay. As I opened it, I looked back over my shoulder. The man was now standing next to my rig. I hadn't heard him move. No footsteps. No sound at all. Inside the store, I rang the bell at the counter. No clerk, no music. The coffee machine was cold, lights dimmed. I stood there, calling out, but nothing. I turned around to check the lot again. The man was gone. So was the sedan. I bolted back to the truck, locked the doors, and got the hell out of there. I didn't even realize I'd left without paying until I was halfway down the highway. About an hour later, I pulled into a bigger, better-lit truck stop. I asked the guy behind the counter if he knew the other station, the one off 95 with the old pumps. He gave me a strange look.
That place burned down 2 years ago. Clerk died in the fire. No one's rebuilt it.
I insisted I'd just been there. He shook his head and pulled out his phone, showed me pictures, blackened ruins, graffiti all over the pumps. I felt ice run down my spine. To this day, I don't know what I stepped into that night. A memory? A leftover echo? Or something else entirely? But I know what I saw. A pale man. At pump 3, watching me like he'd been waiting. And I swear I still hear that gas pump click off in the middle of the night, long after I've parked, and I don't need to see it again. I was driving through the back roads of Mississippi, hauling produce on a route I don't normally take, Highway 84, somewhere between Brookhaven and Waynesboro. It was about 2 a.m., and I was the only one on the road. No headlights in either direction for miles. That's when I saw her, a woman in an orange sundress, barefoot, standing at the edge of the woods. She had long dark hair and pale skin that almost glowed in my headlights. Her dress fluttered in the breeze, and her head was tilted like she was trying to hear something. I slowed down, uneasy. I've stopped for people before, broken down drivers, hitchhikers, but something about this felt wrong. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stared at the road like she didn't know what it was. I passed her slowly, eyes on the mirror. She didn't turn to look at me. I radioed it in just in case. Possible pedestrian on 84, maybe needs help, and kept going. About 10 miles down, I saw her again. Same orange dress, same spot on the shoulder, but it couldn't have been. No one on foot could have made it that far ahead of me, not without a car or cutting through the woods. And even then, it would have taken an hour at least. I drove past, faster this time. 10 minutes later, she was there again. Same spot, same tilt of the head. At this point, I was breathing heavy and gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to look. I just wanted off that road. Eventually, I saw lights ahead, a small gas station with a diner attached. I pulled in, parked under the canopy, and rushed inside. The place was empty except for an old woman behind the register.
"You all right, hun?" she asked.
I nodded, then shook my head. There's a woman out there, in a dress. I've passed her 3 times. Same woman.
She didn't look surprised, just said, "Orange?" "She's been around a long time," the woman said. "They say she was hit by a truck decades ago. Driver didn't stop. Folks see her when they're alone, when they're tired. She walks the woods at night, looking for the truck that killed her."
That was enough for me. I grabbed a coffee, sat in the cab for a bit, and tried to gather myself. After an hour, I decided to keep moving, just wanted to get clear of that stretch. 10 miles down the road, my headlights flickered. Then my engine sputtered. I pulled off, cursing, and popped the hood. That's when I heard it, footsteps. Slow, crunching gravel. I turned, and there she was, closer than before. Head still tilted. Eyes locked on mine. I slammed the hood and floored it, engine coughing to life just in time. I didn't stop until I reached the next town. That was 4 years ago. I haven't taken that route since. I don't plan to, but every now and then, I'll see her in my dreams, standing by the road, barefoot, head tilted, waiting for a ride she'll never get. And I swear, sometimes when I pass tree lines at night, I catch a flash of orange. And I don't look twice. I was hauling animal feed through Kansas, cutting across rural roads near Salina, the kind of empty highway where you see more cornfields than cars, and the towns are just names on signs. It was around 4 a.m., and I was looking for a place to pull over and rest my eyes. That's when I saw the grain elevator. It stood like a monument on the horizon, tall, white, weathered. There was a small gravel lot beside it, big enough to park my rig. I figured I'd stop for a bit, stretch my legs. As I pulled in, my headlights swept across the side of the elevator, and that's when I saw him. A man in overalls and a white t-shirt standing just inside the open doorway. He looked like he belonged there, like a worker. But something was off. He didn't move when the lights hit him, just stood perfectly still, staring at the road. I honked lightly, gave a wave through the windshield. Nothing. No reaction. I parked the rig and stepped out, suddenly not feeling so tired anymore. "Hey," I called. "You all right?" He slowly turned his head, but didn't say anything. Just stared at me. His eyes were deep-set, dark, and expressionless. I remember thinking he looked dry, like paper. His skin had this pale, brittle look, like he'd been sitting out in the sun too long. "Just taking a break," I said, trying to ease the tension. Still nothing. After a moment, he stepped backward into the elevator, out of sight. I walked toward the doorway, peering in cautiously. It was empty. Completely. Just dust, shadows, and a few rusted tools on the ground. No man, nowhere to hide. Just a hollow concrete tube that echoed with every step I took. I backed out, feeling a knot tighten in my chest. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe he'd slipped past me somehow. I walked back to the truck, climbed into the cab, and decided to move on. As I turned the key, the headlights flicked on again, and this time he was standing at the edge of the cornfield, 20 yards away, facing me. No expression. No motion. Just watching. I didn't wait. I drove straight out of there, back onto the highway, heart pounding. I kept checking the mirrors for miles, expecting to see him pop up again in the dark. Later, I asked a guy at a fuel stop if he knew anything about that old grain elevator. He paused, then nodded slowly.
Used to be a mill there, he said. Back in the 70s, a worker fell into the grain chute. Got buried. They didn't find him for days. Shut the place down after that.
I asked what the guy looked like.
Overalls, pale, still.
That was enough for me. Now, every time I see a grain elevator in the distance, I get that same sick feeling in my gut. And I never ever stop near one at night. Because I don't think he was just watching. I think he was waiting. There's a way station off I-70 in eastern Colorado that most drivers pass without thinking twice. Small brick building, a couple of lanes, barely staffed at night. I used to stop there every trip until one night in 2021. It was just past 2 a.m. when I pulled in. The place was open, but no other rigs were in sight. The light above the scale was on, and the green arrow signaled me to enter. I rolled forward, stopped, and waited for the scale to register. That's when I heard it. A voice, soft, raspy, almost like someone whispering through a fan, too heavy. I glanced at the monitor. It was blank. The voice came again, closer. "He's too heavy." I leaned out the window. What was that? No answer. Just the wind brushing across the plains and the low hum of the scale. Then a knock on my passenger side door. I jumped so hard I hit my head on the ceiling. I whipped around, no one there. I climbed out, walked around the truck with a flashlight. The lot was empty. No cars, no officers, nothing. Just me and the building. I started to head for the office to see if someone was inside playing games, but as I got close, I noticed something strange. The windows were completely black. Not dark, black, like someone had painted over them. Still, I knocked. No answer. I turned the knob and the door creaked open. The interior was pitch dark, despite the overhead lights supposedly being on. I stepped 1 foot inside and instantly felt something was wrong. The air was thick, like I'd walked into a sealed room. It smelled musty, like wet carpet and rusted iron.
That's when I heard it again, whispering, but now it was all around me. He's still here, buried, never got out.
I backed out fast, heart racing, slammed the door, ran to my cab, and drove off the scale without waiting for the green light. I didn't care if I got a fine, I just needed distance. I didn't stop again until I reached Denver. Later that day, I told a buddy what happened. He got real quiet, then pulled up an article on his phone, showed me a news clipping from 1998. Apparently, a dot worker at that way station went missing during his shift. They searched the surrounding fields, the woods, even the drainage ditches. Never found him. A few years later, they redid the floor of the way station, poured new concrete after a collapse in the break room. Some folks believe they buried him without even realizing it. Now drivers report hearing whispers, seeing shadows move behind the glass, feeling watched as they idle on the scale. Some say he's still doing his job, still measuring weight, still trying to tell people something. Me? I don't stop there anymore. And if I ever have to, I keep the windows up, the doors locked, and I don't listen too close because sometimes the whispering sounds like it's coming from right under the tires. I was rolling through Montana on US 287, just north of Helena, around 1 a.m. The sky was pitch black, and the road was completely empty. No towns for miles, just stretches of dark highway and the distant shimmer of mountains. I turned on my CB to keep myself awake. Most channels were quiet. Then I flipped to channel 23 and heard static, then a voice. "Breaker, anyone out there?" It was a woman's voice, quiet, shaky. I replied, "This is Dust Dog on 287. You okay?" Long pause. Then he took the keys. "I'm locked in. I can't get out." I asked her for a location, but all I got was sobbing and static. Something about a blue pickup and being stuck in a rest area. Then silence. I stayed on the channel, trying to coax more information. After a few minutes, a man's voice came on. "She doesn't need your help." Chilled me to the core. I immediately reported it to Highway Patrol. Gave them my coordinates, channel number, everything. They said they'd check it out, but didn't sound too concerned. Then my CB started acting weird, volume spiking, channels switching on their own. I turned it off. 15 minutes later, I saw something up ahead, a blue pickup on the shoulder, emergency lights blinking. The driver's door was open, no one inside. I slowed down but didn't stop, not after what I heard. A few miles later, I reached a truck stop, told the clerk about it, including the voice on the CB. He looked at me like I'd told him a ghost story.
"That channel?" he said. "You heard her on 23? I nodded. He shook his head. "Channel 23's cursed. Been that way since a girl went missing 10 years ago. Last transmission was a plea for help. Said she was locked in a pickup at a rest stop. They never found her." I didn't say anything. He added, "Drivers still report hearing her, always around that stretch of 287, always on 23.
I turned my CB off that night and didn't touch it again for weeks. Some folks say you shouldn't respond when she calls, that she's stuck in a loop. Others say you invite something in when you answer, something that pretends to be her, until it's not. All I know is I won't use that channel anymore. And if I hear that voice again, crying for help, I'll keep the radio off and both eyes on the road." I was on a long, overnight haul through New Mexico, somewhere off I-10 near Lordsburg. I stopped at one of those old travel centers, not a Love's or Flying J, but a real rundown place. Flickering signs, dusty pumps, a half-lit diner attached. It was around 3:30 a.m., and my stomach had been acting up. Figured I'd use the restroom before grabbing a coffee. The place was empty, just one sleepy-looking cashier behind the counter who barely looked up as I walked past. The men's room was at the far end, past some broken slot machines. Inside, it was dead silent. One of the fluorescent lights was flickering, and only 2 of the 3 stalls had doors. I took the far stall and sat down. A couple minutes in, I heard the restroom door creak open. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. They walked to the stall next to mine, the one without a door, and stopped. I expected to see someone's feet, but there were none. I leaned slightly to check again. Still nothing.
Then a whisper, "You shouldn't be here." It came from the empty stall.
I froze. My blood ran cold. "Excuse me?" I said. Silence. Then 3 slow knocks on the divider between the stalls. I stood up fast, heart pounding, yanked my pants up, burst out of the stall, no one there. The restroom was empty. I checked under all the doors, even peeked outside. Nothing. I was alone. Trying to calm myself down, I splashed water on my face and looked in the mirror. That's when I saw something behind me. A face. Pale. Sunken eyes. Thin lips. Just for a second, I spun around. No one. I bolted out and went straight to the counter. Told the cashier someone was messing around in the bathroom.
He just stared at me. "You used the back stall, didn't you?" I nodded. He sighed. "We tell folks not to. Some listen, most don't." Then he told me the story.
10 years ago, a trucker came through during a snowstorm. He used the bathroom, had a heart attack in the far stall. Wasn't found until the next morning. People say he still lingers. Doesn't like company.
He talks sometimes, the clerk said, but mostly he just watches.
Needless to say, I didn't stay for coffee. Now, whenever I stop at unfamiliar truck stops, especially the older ones, I check the restroom stalls before I do anything. And if one doesn't have a door, I don't use it. It was a stretch of highway in Texas I'd driven 100 times before, long, flat, and forgettable. But something about the area around mile marker 212 had always made me uneasy. I didn't know why, just a gut thing. Then one night, that stretch gave me a reason. I was hauling auto parts to San Antonio, cruising through around 3:15 a.m. when I saw a car on the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking. I slowed down out of instinct. There was a man standing next to the driver's side door, waving me down with one arm. I rolled down my window and called out, "You all right?" He didn't answer, just pointed toward the front of the car, then motioned like he wanted me to stop. I pulled over a few yards ahead, threw on my flashers, and got out. As I approached, I called out again. Still nothing. He just stood there, head down, pointing. But here's the thing. As I got within 20 feet, I realized he wasn't moving at all. His arms stayed outstretched. His fingers didn't twitch. Not even his clothes rippled in the breeze. He looked frozen. I stopped in my tracks. Then I noticed the car. It was spotless, like showroom spotless. No license plates, no dust, no grime, not even a speck on the windshield. That's when I knew something was wrong. I backed away slowly, not turning around until I was at my truck steps. I climbed in and locked the doors. As I pulled back onto the road, I glanced in the mirror. He was gone. So was the car. I was shaken but tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. Long hours, stress, whatever. But when I hit the next truck stop, I mentioned it to the guy working the counter. When I said mile marker 212, he gave me a look like I'd just said a curse word.
"You saw the stalled car?" he asked quietly. I nodded.
He told me there had been an accident on that stretch 5 years ago. A man in a black sedan had pulled over, trying to flag down help. A distracted trucker didn't see him and, well, you can imagine. Since then, there had been dozens of sightings. Same car, same man, always pointing, always silent, and always gone by the time anyone got close. Some truckers who stopped said they lost time. One guy said his dashcam footage went static for 20 minutes. Another said he touched the man's shoulder and felt like he was grabbing cold steel. The locals call it the ghost of 212. Highway Patrol won't log it anymore. They just say avoid that mile at night. I drive a different route now. Adds 45 minutes to my haul, but I don't care. Because whatever I saw that night wasn't alive. And if you ever drive down that road and see a man waving near a pristine black car, keep moving. He's not asking for help. He's asking for you. I was parked at a truck stop outside Flagstaff, Arizona. It was late, around 1:30 a.m., and I was dead tired. I had a few hours to kill before I could unload at my next stop, so I figured I'd catch some shootier in the sleeper. The lot was quiet. A few rigs idling, some guys walking back from the diner, but mostly dark and still. I climbed into the bunk, shut the curtains, and dozed off almost instantly. Maybe an hour later I woke up to the sound of soft knocking. Not at the driver's door, not the window. From inside the cab, 3 gentle taps. Then silence. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I listened, nothing. I thought maybe I'd imagined it. I laid back down, then I heard it again, tap, 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 and this time it was followed by a faint whisper. "Are you awake?" I froze. I pulled back the curtain and looked around the cab. Nothing. Checked the lock, still sealed. No sign of forced entry. I even checked under the bed and in the side compartments. Empty. Trying to calm myself down, I turned on the dome light, cracked a bottle of water, and sat there a minute. Everything looked normal. Then I saw it. A handprint on the inside of the rear window. Small, smudged, as if someone had leaned there from the inside. I wiped it off and got out of the truck. Did a full walk around, nothing suspicious. Just my rig, parked under a flickering floodlight. I debated sleeping again, but decided I'd feel safer in the diner. I grabbed my keys, locked the cab, and started walking.
That's when a man, maybe in his 60s, grizzled, long-haul type, called out to me from his truck 2 spots over. "You hear her too?" he asked, as if he already knew. I stopped. "Hear who?" He nodded at my truck. "The little girl shows up in sleeper cabs. You hear tapping, whispering. Sometimes feel someone crawl into the bunk." He wasn't joking. He told me he first encountered her 15 years ago. Different truck, different state, but the same thing. The knocking, the voice, the handprint. Said he'd met maybe a dozen other drivers over the years who'd had the exact same experience. Always a girl, always the bunk, always asking the same thing. "Are you awake?" I asked who she was. He shook his head. "No one knows. Maybe a runaway, maybe something else, but she doesn't leave a trace, just memory."
I didn't sleep that night. I left the lot early and drove till sunrise. Weeks later, I found a thread online, a forum for truckers sharing strange encounters. A dozen posts titled "Sleeper Cab Girl," all the same story. Some said she appears when you're too tired to drive. Some believe she's a warning. Others think she's just lonely. Me? I still don't know. But every night before I climb into the bunk, I check the back window for smudges. And if I ever hear that knock again, I won't answer.